Minnesota Vikings are about to kick off with the Los Angeles Rams, and we are your one-stop pregame show talking every angle. It's going to be a fun one tonight. The Vikings are going to play in a quasi-home game in Arizona. How are the wildfires going to affect everything mentally for both sides? How can the Vikings utilize the things that hindered them last time in order to get the win? We're going to talk about all that and more here on a special pregame episode of The Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Oops. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, he will migrate up to the top left corner. He is producer Dave. And Dave, as we kind of get started here on this Monday evening, it is a win or die scenario for the Minnesota Vikings. How you feeling?
I've been in a foul mood ever since the loss to Detroit.
Yeah, I'm
hoping this game changes that. Because I find it interesting that watching this team for so long, how it affects my temperament.
That's a fair point. For me, I was in a little bit of a foul mood, but then I watched the film and I realized that this is still a really damn good football team, and this team can make a real run. And I kind of want to start there to talk about it. One of the things that we didn't really get to on Monday's show or Wednesday's show is how the Vikings ended up losing that game. And with my extensive film study, one of the big things I found is Darnold was making the right decisions. He was missing on the throws, and he missed at a staggeringly bad rate. So one thing we can kind of relate to is, remember how the Vikings were being called frauds in 2022? Oh, they're not this good of a football team, yada, yada, yada. It's kind of the same concept. Darnold is not going to miss all those throws consistently because he's hit them all year long. It was an abnormal game for him. And it wasn't like he was missing bad. We saw them all. The 3 passes into the end zone, and then the one to Jordan Addison also in the end zone, so 4 of them. The 2 to TJ Hockenson. We're talking about 6 inches to a foot, not missing by a lot. And he missed all of those. And it's more of a frustration thing. And some former players went online, and I kind of agree that he was just pressing. And you could tell there was just too much adrenaline, too much, like he was too hyped up. It was like he took a caffeine pill and drank a couple monsters right before the game started. It was just too much, and he didn't end up being successful at it really at all. So it's a frustrating one. But when you look at the process and how he identified that this is where I need to throw the football is mostly good. Now, he could have said, hey, I need to throw Jordan Addison in the red zone area, which those were misses. But then what he ended up doing to then make good throws, because one of those Jordan Addison misses, he ended up rolling out and then finding Addison open again and threw a good ball. It just didn't get completed. The other one was one of those where he threw it to Justin Jefferson and he barely missed. So procedurally, I was very happy with him. You still have to hit. You still have to take those throws and you have to make them. And it's a frustrating thing when you don't. So the fact that the Vikings were able to get to a point where, hey, we're going to be able to get this, we're going to be able to make this work, was great. But not hitting them is going to lead to a loss like that. And the fact that Sam Darnold was 0-4, that's not going to happen again. That dude has been great all year at attacking down the field. He's been great at making those pinpoint throws. And you're going to see some of that come to fruition tonight against the Rams. If Darnold would have hit half of those throws, which is about his normal rate, just an average Sam Darnold game, the Vikings could have easily been tied with the Lions. And then if you have the add the Andrew Van Ginkel pick 6, all of a sudden you got a 14-point lead kind of thing. So there are levels to this. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Vikings should have won. They did not play well enough to win that football game. But you take a few plays that were critical moments for the Vikings where they should have converted, that they've converted all year, and you don't, and you do that in bunches, it's going to significantly swing that football game. Because remember, it was 17-9 going into the fourth quarter. That was still a winnable football game for this team. That's one of the reasons why I have hope that this team can really figure it out, and why that game was a wake-up call. Because you need a wake-up call sometimes in order to just kind of get everything right. Because when everything's going right for you and something goes wrong, sometimes it's just like, oh, you can kind of blow it off because we've won 9 in a row. You haven't won 9 in a row anymore. You've lost 1. And now you have to figure out how you're going to rebound. How are you going to take that next step? How are you going to continue to be consistent? And that's where I think this Minnesota Vikings team can thrive. They had that opportunity. And there are multiple reasons that are completely different from that first game, which I think are really interesting to kind of talk about. We'll go through those. I think with this Vikings team, though, Dave, the big thing, here is this. They have rebounded every single time. Every single time that there has been we didn't have a good game, or, this wasn't a good performance. They fixed it. And they made sure they were better next time. Or sometimes later in the game, the Colts game, it was 7-0 at halftime. Then the Vikings put together 3 consecutive touchdown drives, won that game 21-13. This Vikings team can do that. This Vikings team has shown the ability to learn, adapt, and grow. Everybody's heard the phrase adapt or die. If you don't adapt, you will die in this football game. You will find ways to lose. You have to be ready. You have to be willing to adjust. You have to be willing to do different things than what you were previously doing. The Vikings have done it all year. And the fact that it happened in the regular season and not the wild card round, to me, that gives you a little bit of hope saying, hey, they can do this. They can take this thing and they can run with it. And Dave, I think that is a glorious, glorious thing.
Now, they just need to do that. But yes, the fact this is a good team and it's going to get better. But let's hope tonight they prove it. And I think there's a lot of things that would advantage the Vikings tonight. I'm sure we're going to get into it, but the books still have them favored by 2.5 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I was just I've got DraftKings pulled up. 2.5 points that I think they might have taken it down, or just needs to be refreshed. Nope, just needs to be refreshed. Current spread is Vikings minus 2.5 at minus 118 odds. So you have to bet $118 in order to win 100, and that is off of DraftKings Sportsbook. The Rams are plus 2.5 at minus 102, so you'll have to bet 102 to win 100. Overs 47.5 at minus 112. Unders minus 108. Vikings are minus 142 on the money line. And Rams plus 120.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And why I think that's interesting, Dave, is they think the Vikings are going to win this game. And there are a lot of different things that we'll end up talking about here. One of the things that's really interesting to me is the element of the Rams being displaced, having all this tragedy in their hometown. I mean, LA really isn't anybody's hometown per se. Friend of the show, Luke Braun, lives in Los Angeles. He kind of talks about it. Nobody's from LA. You move to LA and live here.
There are a few people that are born there, but yes.
Well, of course there are. But the general construct is it's more of a transplant city than it is a place where a lot of people call home for their lives,
right.
You know? So how is all of that going to affect everybody? How are they going to handle the fact that some of them were displaced? We know that J.J. Redick, the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, had his home burned down in this. We've seen multiple Hollywood actors, let alone the thousands upon thousands of just normal civilians that had their homes and lives torn apart. How is this affecting everybody? And when you look at this from a football perspective, how is it going to impact them? How is it going to impact the players, the coaches? Are they going to have this extra level of stress just looming above their heads, this giant cloud? How is that going to happen? How is that going to impact everybody? Stuff like that impacts people very differently. I unfortunately found out about 25 minutes ago, my dad called me. One of my aunts passed away. And she was lucky enough to live into her 80s, and she was a wonderful woman. And I'm glad I got to know her and she got to live that kind of life. But at that point, I was kind of at peace because I'm glad that she got to do all of those things and live a long, fulfilling, wonderful life. So not everybody's going to feel the same way when they hear that kind of news. And this isn't me asking for sympathy. My aunt was a wonderful person and she got to live that life. But people react to things differently. People react to tragedy differently. Some people galvanize. Some people curl up into the fetal position. And there's a lot of in between. How is this Rams team going to come out? Are they going to come out flat? Or are they going to come out passionate? Are they going to come out wanting to fight for everything in their hometown? Are they going to want to come out? Like, there's going to be a want there. But want in your head versus want how you show it are going to be two completely different things. And I think we are going to see what this Rams team really is. Are we going to see this Rams team come out like we saw the New York teams after 9/11? If you remember, Dave, there was a huge, that first game back was at Shea Stadium with the Mets. And you could just tell that they didn't just want to win that game because it was a baseball game. They wanted to win that game because this is effing New York City and you don't do that to us. There was a special level of want. Are we going to see that from the Rams tonight? I will not say yes or no, but when you have tragedy strike, there are usually two ways to go. One, you come out and absolutely lay an egg. Or two, you come out and fight with fire and you take over. Like Brett Favre did against the Raiders the day after his dad died, had the best game of his career. It was basically perfect. It was like 23 of 28 for 399 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was incredible. People have different reactions. How the Rams react, how they come out of this game is going to be so key to how this game ends up playing out. We don't know how that's going to manifest itself. And I think that's going to be huge. And we can't sit here and say that it's going to be this way or it's going to be that way. We know it's going to likely be one of three ways. It's going to be absolutely no impact at all, or it's going to really impact them in a positive or a negative way. That's the unknown key to this game, Dave.
And some of them, like you said, have had to evacuate themselves with their family and pets. And they were set up in Arizona through this weekend. So let's hope, you've got to feel sorry for them.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one of the worst national disasters, if not the worst we've ever had. And it's shame. And they've got to turn around and focus on a football game. And that's what you're talking about. Do they turn that and focus on the game, or are they still contemplating, is my house still there? Is it nothing but foundation? What do I do next? Sort of thing.
And anybody who's been any kind of athlete or been in any kind of competition, whether it be like I used to do like math league and speech and stuff when I was in high school. Because look, I love sports. Sports are my life. I'm terrible at sports. I just am. I am 6'6", 330, and I don't have an athletic bone in my body. But when you're in a competition, you get this adrenaline rush and you get this stuff. But sometimes thoughts cloud your mind. I still remember at a conference meet when I was in speech where this girl who had joined the speech team late just absolutely eviscerated me in the first round. And I was very pissed because I'm like, this girl never did anything. And then she won the conference. It was just the wildest thing. And it drove me nuts for a long time because of just how everything went down. And I remember it got to me. and I let something get to me like that, and that was my own fault. Will that get to the Rams tonight? That's going to be huge, and we won't know unless somebody comes out and says that after the game, oh, we were so galvanized by everything that we wanted to win it for them. Or, look, there is just too much weighing on our minds, and we just could not put in enough focus. We will not be able to know that. We will have to have them tell us. And that's going to be huge, 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 Dave. And I can't say that enough because we just don't know. We don't. And to say that we might know, I think is a little dishonest. I think is a little, it's too speculative. But something's going to be, it's going to impact them somehow. We just don't know how.
And it's not just every player on the team. It's all the staff. It's all their logistics. Everybody's involved. And you can't look at each and every one of them and say, well, this guy's going to star and this one's going to fail. And this, you just can't. So.
No, we can't. And I think that's going to be one thing that is very, very interesting. I am very excited to kind of see what manifests, how this ends up coming about. And I think it's going to be really interesting what ends up happening here. Because, look, this is a playoff game. It's not just about what's on the field. It's what happens on the field impacts everything moving forward. One of these teams is going to go to Philadelphia. And I'm intrigued to kind of see what that looks like.
Wes says professional athletes rise and zone themselves into another level. You hope, but they're also human. I wonder how Underdog thinks about it.
Yeah, exactly. And let's talk about our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They are a new partner here. If you guys didn't know, I'm a big fan of playing Underdog. So it's pretty simple. 2 to 8 different players, and you pick their stats, either higher or lower. That simple. And you can have a chance to win up to 1,000 times your money. So if you put $10 down on a single entry, a single lineup, you can turn that into up to $10,000. That's it. It's that simple. You can that pick from any game. The only thing is you have to pick between at least 2 different teams, and you can't pick the same player twice. So if you love, like I do, Sam Darnold over 269.5 passing yards tonight, you then also can't pick Sam Darnold over 1.5 touchdowns. You have to pick which one you like the most, and that's where things get really, really fun. I ended up hitting a 4-pick lineup in the Boise State-Penn State quarterfinal game. That was one of my biggest wins. And I've got a lineup tonight of Sam Darnold over 269.5 passing yards and Aaron Jones over 59.5 rushing yards. I think the Vikings are going to have a great offensive day. And it's an easy thing to do. And all you have to do, Dave, it's pretty simple. Go to Underdog, sign up with promo code Forno, Forno, to get to claim your free pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. What that is whatever you end up depositing, they match it. Pretty simple. You are going to want to do that because it is a lot of fun, and we can play together. And make sure that you are in a state where Underdog is available. And if you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Underdog is a lot of fun, and I think you guys will enjoy it too. And that is why we are partnering with them, because it's just another fun way, Dave, to make every game a little bit more fun, especially once we get into the dog days of the offseason and we've got the UFL. If they have the CFL, which I'm not sure, and I'm going to ask about the CFL because I love me some CFL. And you could do baseball, golf, basketball. It's a year-round thing, and you can just have a little bit of fun while you watch sports.
But wager, effectively and smartly. What you can afford.
Yeah. Just the way I do it, Dave, is it's a part of my entertainment budget.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't afford to go out to the bar or go out to dinner or go buy yourself a brand new Mac computer, which Dave is making me do, then you can't afford to have a lineup. That's the way I treat it. And that is a way you can continue to have fun with it. That's the most important part. This is about fun. And you get a chance to win some money. That's always awesome too. But let's get back to the element of the Vikings game. Thomas in the chat calls the Vikings frauds. I don't think they're frauds. They're 5-3 against teams with winning records. Their only losses are 2 to Detroit and 1 to the Rams on 4 days rest. If they get smoked here, I still wouldn't call them frauds, but they are flawed. Frauds means that you didn't deserve to win all those games. Oh, they earned those wins. They earned the right to call themselves a 14-win team. It wasn't fluky. I think frauds is too far, but that's my personal opinion. I do want to go over, Dave, before we kind of get everybody out of here, because I want to give you guys a little bit of time between this show and the game to get your snacks, to get ready. I still have to figure out what I'm going to eat. I have basically eaten a bowl of popcorn, and that's it today. So I need to figure out something myself. But it's also interesting in the fact that when you look at this game, there are a lot of differences, Dave, between what they were in the first matchup versus what they are now. And I'm going to pull it up here because I want to make sure that I get everything. I wrote an article about it on A2Zsports.com, talking about the biggest differences. And I'm going to send Dave the link in our private chat so he can put the link in the comments. So if you guys want to follow along and read it, you are more than welcome to, and I would greatly appreciate it. But there are some major differences. And will that end up helping the Vikings win? We'll find out. They have to go play the game. And that's one thing I've talked about a lot in the world of college football, which I also do coverage on. The college football playoff. You still have to earn your right to make it. You have to deserve it. The Vikings deserve to be in the playoffs right now. And once you get there, then you got to win. And you have to earn your way to the next round. Then you have to earn your way to the next round, and then earn your way to the Super Bowl, and then earn the Vince Lombardi trophy. Nothing will be given to you. But these factors that are different, I think can really play into helping the Vikings get the win. And we're going to kind of burst through the first couple because the first couple are pretty easy. Vikings will have a full week to prepare. They had 8 days between their last game and today to prepare for the Rams. Last time, they had 4 days between playing the Lions and playing the Rams. That 4 days, Thursday games are fluky. I'm not going to say that the Rams won in fluky fashion. They did not. But Thursday games are weird as a construct because you have less time to prepare, less time for your body to heal. They're just different. And because they're different, that matters. It matters quite a bit. So the fact that there's a full week to prepare for both teams means it'll be different. And along with that, there was a factor in that short week that ended up hindering the Vikings in a major way. And that was Puka Nacua. He was on injured reserve. His practice window was activated, I believe it was that Wednesday. And then he was activated at 3 o'clock Thursday, and the Vikings were not prepared for it. Nobody was prepared for it. Nobody believed he would play. And then all of a sudden he's activated. So it's like, well, what the heck are we going to do here? Well, it ended up crushing him. This is a quote from Brian Flores this past Thursday. Quote, he comes off the IR short week. Quite honestly, we were a little bit surprised that he was out there, that he was brought up, and it was a night game on a Thursday. So we found out, let's call it 4 hours before the game, which was 3 o'clock. So there's a little bit of, I don't want to say a word scrambling, but hey, we had seen a little bit of them from the previous year, but not much this year. Because remember, Puka was hurt in that first game against the Detroit Lions. So there's a little bit of scrambling, and he was involved early. So obviously we know he's going to be out there now this time out. And we'll do a better job, or I'll do a better job of making sure guys are prepared, end quote. I think that's an important factor because now that you have this time and look, the Rams are healthy. They were devastated by injuries earlier in the year. They're also a very, very streaky team, as you found out when we had that conversation with AJ Schulte on Wednesday. The big thing with the Rams is now that you know what you're going to get, now you can attack what they are going to give you. And there's not going to be this level of, hey, we believe that it's going to be this way. No, there's not going to be a question about Puka Nacua. There's going to be an understanding that they can make it happen. They can now attack Puka because they know he's going to be there. They're not going to prepare for somebody who's not there. That stuff matters. And I'm really, really excited to kind of see what that ends up looking like, how they're going to attack. Cooper Kupp is fine. He's not the Cooper Kupp of 3 years ago. He isn't. And that when you are a guy who isn't the best hyper athlete, which Cooper Kupp is not, when the athleticism starts to wane, it shows up a lot more. Adam Thielen was one of those guys. He was a good athlete, not a great athlete. So when the athleticism starts to go, it manifests itself a lot more harsh than, say, somebody like Tyreek Hill. If Tyreek Hill goes from having this dynamite elite speed to just really good speed, that's not going to hinder him as much as you're going to see somebody like Adam Thielen. So now we're seeing that with Cooper Kupp. How is he going to impact the game as much? He's not going to impact the game as much. They have Puka for that now. Puka is essentially the new Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp is his sidekick. So how are you going to stop him? I wonder if they're going to play more man coverage. They did do a really good job of playing coverage behind it. They actually were relatively successful against the blitz against him last time. It's just Stafford is Stafford. He doesn't quite have all of the juice in his arm that he used to. But Dave, he can still do stupid things where it's just like, this dude still has it. And I think that's going to be a really interesting factor in how they end up winning or losing this game. Stafford's got to play well. He's got to put the ball in those bonkers positions and give his guys opportunities to win. If he does that, I think we'll end up seeing a lot of success. If he doesn't, the Vikings could run away with this really quickly.
I agree. And Chris, you're making me laugh, improving my mood. So
yeah, that Chris, he's a funny one. He is a funny one. All right. A couple other elements that are really important. One, this is a neutral site game. Dave, this is the second game ever to have a playoff game moved locations. The first time, the 1936 NFL championship game between Green Bay and Boston. It was moved from Fenway Park to the Polo Grounds because Fenway Park wasn't selling enough tickets. Yeah.
Let me guess who won that one.
I believe it was Green Bay. I'm not 100% sure.
That's my guess.
I mean,
because even as the Boston Patriots, they were bad.
Yeah. Never forget, shout out the Decatur Staleys, one of my favorite team names in NFL history. But being in Arizona, ticket data says the Vikings could have upwards of like a 55 to 45 advantage in fans based on like calculated data. We'll find out during the game. There are a lot of snowbirds and a lot of transplants in Arizona. So we'll see how that ends up manifesting. If the Vikings have any kind of home field advantage, I don't know how much it'll impact because the Rams basically play on the road every single week. SoFi Stadium is just close to their house. They're almost always at a fan disadvantage. So it's likely not going to hinder them as much as it would, say, the Green Bay Packers, the Philadelphia Eagles. It would hinder those teams a lot more. So I think that part is interesting. But Arizona, the Vikings, I don't remember the last time they won in Arizona. It's been a minute. They lost in 2015. They lost in 2021. They lost in 2009. They lost in 2003. I don't remember the last time they won in Arizona. Let's find out.
It's a good question. I don't know. Without looking. But it's on grass instead of turf now. which is interesting. But we'll see. Wes keeps talking about Hawk over the middle. I think that's going to be a big one today.
It is, and that's going to be my next point. Okay, so they won 35-14 in 2008. They lost in 2009. That was the infamous E.J. Henderson snaps his femur game. They also won in 97, in 95, and 91. So they actually have a decent track record. It's just they've lost the last 3 and 4 of the last 5. The other element that you mentioned here earlier is there was no TJ Hockenson and no Blake Cashman in the first game. Where did the Vikings get dominated in the first game, Dave? Middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan Pace Jr. was exploited multiple times in the middle of the field, especially with the running backs attacking him in coverage. He would overset to one side, and then Kyron Williams just take him on an option route. That first touchdown, Ivan Pace. If that's Blake Cashman, that might not be a touchdown. In fact, I'd be willing to bet it's not a touchdown because Blake Cashman is in coverage, and he's going to be much more measured and much more in better position than Pace, because Pace just isn't a good coverage backer. So they're going to be a huge impact. I think Cashman's ability to blitz, play the run, play coverage is going to matter a ton in this game. Then on top of that, you have TJ Hockenson. Not having that ability to just spam the middle of the field with wide choice, which the Vikings have loved to do. Less with Darnold and a lot more with Kirk Cousins, but we also know that Hockenson is coming off of that torn ACL, and it's taken him a little bit to really get into the flow of things. But I think that chemistry is developing, and they were this close to 2 bonkers good plays, chunk plays against the Lions, both of which would have resulted in first downs. Because remember, against the Jaguars, he had 4 consecutive first downs on third down in one drive. So there is something there, and it takes a little bit sometimes to develop that elite level chemistry, which I don't think they have yet, but that's okay. Darnold just wants to chuck it down the field. He is a classic chuck it and F it kind of guy. And I think we love him for it. That's why he's been so successful, is he wants to find the deep shots. He wants to attack, and it's working. But Hockenson, I think, is going to be a really, really big factor in being able to attack in the middle of the field, down the field, and also spring open the likes of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. If you can do that, Dave, this could be a humongous win for this football team.
It would be. And for Kevin O'Connell, he needs to win his first one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brian asks, who are the inactives? The inactives for tonight on the Vikings side are Daniel Jones. He's the emergency QB3 if necessary, which means Nick Mullins is still your QB2. Levi Drake Rodriguez. I'd like to see more of LDR. Dan Feeney, Walter Rouse, and Pat Jones. Pat Jones still dealing with the injury. As for the Rams, we have Stetson Bennett, Tyler Johnson, Emmanuel Forbes, Brennan Jackson, Justin Diedick, and Joe Noteboom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I'd say the biggest one there is Noteboom. Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what this game looks like, Dave. Before we go, because I want to give it, like I said, I want to give everybody an opportunity to get settled in, get your snacks, get your dinner, get your brewski, which I'm having the first one right now, so I can kind of keep the nerves calmed. We weren't supposed to be here, but that doesn't make this any less stressful. Do you have a prediction for tonight?
I do not. I hope the Vikings win, and I hope they win convincingly. I think, as I was talking to Darren earlier today, I worry that how they reset their mentality after the loss last week is going to be big. Because he asked me, are the Vikings going to win this week and then next against the Eagles? And I said, yeah, we can win both of them easily. We can win out Cross your fingers. We can beat just about anybody in this league. But it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back. And it was a psychological blow to them after losing what was hyped up as the biggest game in NFL history, and they came out juiced for it. I think they'll do just fine. And let's start another win streak and make it 4 in a row this time.
Yeah. I remember I tweeted right before the Packers-Vikings game that I really just had no feel on how this game was going to go. And literally any result wouldn't have surprised me. I was the least confident I'd ever been in how a game would go because I thought it was an incredibly even matchup. The Vikings were great, but the Packers were a very good football team, and I still believe they're a good football team. Their youth just kicked them in the butt. They just kept making dumb mistake after dumb mistake after dumb mistake all year. And I think being the youngest team in the NFL 2 years in a row, they played well, but you could tell that there were just voids. And I think those voids will need to manifest themselves next year into more positive things. And I think it can and it will. I hope the Packers never win another football game again, but I do think that they're a good football team. We're going to have to deal with them for years to come. Honestly, when I take a look at this Vikings team, I do think that their loss last week is going to end up being a huge benefit for them. I'm predicting 31-21 Vikings win. I genuinely Hey, you know what? It wouldn't shock me, Dave, if they lost this game. It wouldn't shock me if they just went just absolutely blew the doors off of them. It's another situation where I don't think anything will truly surprise me except the Vikings lay a complete egg and lose 41 donut. That would shock me. But I do think that the Vikings have done enough consistently, and they have great coaching. They have really good players, and these guys are all bought in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Darnold's going to come out of his shell. He's going to win his first playoff game. Kevin O'Connell's going to win his first playoff game. And we're going to be on this show tonight, the post-game show, starting live at the 2-minute warning. So make sure you join us after the game, talking about the Vikings getting a win. I think they're going to.
Let's do that. It's a date.
Well, don't tell my wife. She might be a little upset. I need to take her on one of these pretty soon. But
hey,
we're going to have some fun, Dave. We are going to have some fun. And that is going to be our pregame show tonight. Go enjoy the game. Kickoff is at 7 tonight. 7, not 7:15, not 7:20, 7 Central. Make sure you aren't late because it is a little bit of a different schedule in the playoffs. Next week, 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Like a college football game in Conference USA. It's like I'm used to it, but it's definitely weird for some people. And hopefully we'll be able to preview Vikings-Eagles this week leading up to that game. We may even have a bonus episode of the Real Forno Show. Who knows? Because tonight, we didn't really get to do much. It was a pregame show, which rules, but we want to be able to give you a little bit more content. So Dave and I will talk about it, see if we can do that. In the meantime, go enjoy the game. Join us at the 2-minute warning or after the game, whichever you prefer. But we look forward to seeing you tonight. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. Enjoy yourselves, and SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings, let's win this game. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!